two guys after a fight know who won the fight. Now, that's a broad stroke. There's exceptions. I could use myself. I fought Michael Bisping, and there was so much on it for me. I was coming off a suspension. You talk about need and you talk about want. I really needed things to be going well and get a little bit of momentum. It was also a title elimination fight for me. I don't know if that was true for Bisping, and it might have been, but I was told, I really needed to win this fight. The fight's over. It was very hard. It was very close. I couldn't wait. I could not take the anticipation. It was killing me. I turned to Bisping and said, who won the fight? But I knew he'd tell me. I knew he would tell. We both know who won the fight, but there's exceptions. In fact, I'm telling you a story of the exception. He thought he won. I remember thinking he might have won. And then the judge had it that Chael won. But none of us really thought it was like a screw job. Sometimes there's a close fight. That's what I'm trying to share for you, okay? You guys know Coach Lopez, Fernand Lopez? Fernand Lopez is one of the great guys in this sport who has done so much for other people, but like all coaches, he will never get credit. Fine. But Fernand Lopez knows what he's looking at. To say that he's an expert would be a massive understatement. You guys remember when Ciryl and Francis were training together and Francis left, but the coach stayed, and now he's got Ciryl and he's going head to head with Francis. Do you remember that? But that was Fernand Lopez. So just by example of how good he is and how much he knows what he's looking at, how much he knows how to work with heavyweights, how much he understands the striking and the grappling, boom, I just submitted two guys for his own. Two guys were so good they had to fight each other. Okay. He was surprised when Ciryl won. And that in and of itself does not mean that he didn't win, but Ciryl, I've always wanted a guy when he gets a screw job finish. I have always wanted this. Like the worst that I have ever seen, the worst that I have personally ever seen. Evander Holyfield versus Lennox Lewis, part 1. It was beyond obvious, and the judges screwed it to a draw. But I believe they were fighting for Evander's belt. I believe Evander's the one that brought the belt. Well, I know he was. So he hangs on to the championship. They go and do a rematch, which is more competitive than the first fight. Far more. And obviously, Lennox won. So that's the worst I've ever seen. I remember at that moment when Evander took the microphone, how much I would have appreciated if he would have said, he won. He won the fight. I thought that he won. I just remember thinking that. Now, I was a kid at that time. And since I've learned the business and the professional side of it, I don't know that I would advise anybody to do that. But I have, since my youth, wished that somebody would. I just thought it was good sportsmanship. And Ciryl Gane did. Not quite as strong as the way I just laid it out, but Ciryl Gane did. Come on. Ciryl Gane handled that like a real man. He really did. And he tipped his hat. He knew, I'm leaving here with the accolades. I'm going to leave here with the opportunity. I'm leaving here with the money. When we get in the back and they hand me 2 checks and they hand you 1, I'm not going to sign it over and give it to you. I'm going to take this. But don't think for a moment that I don't know it was a gift. There was something about that. You do what you want with the interpretation. The reason that, as much as I've wanted it my whole life and now I get it, Ciryl can't do anything that I can credit him for. I have never paid Ciryl a compliment. I'm open to doing it, but I never have. There's something, he can't get anything right with me. But I feel that I am being objective in this matter because the reason that fight was happening was for a negotiation tool to get a whole nother fight to the ring. We have identified who is next for the undisputed championship. We have clearly identified that. His name is Tom Aspinall. But if we can't get that fight, then we still need to identify who is next for the interim heavyweight championship, of which Tom has and has already defended once. So this was a very important outcome. And Volkov versus Tom works much less effectively than Ciryl versus Tom. Okay. Now, Now that we understand all of those things, for the situation, it was important that Ciryl, I don't know what you're all looking at. You're all blind. Nate Diaz it. I won every single round. It was important that he did that. Let's set that importance aside and just speak to what we saw. Because Coach Lopez was surprised. He took some heat. I don't like when Fernando Lopez takes heat. I feel that he is one of the most misunderstood. He's a bad guy. But he's a good bad guy. You're misunderstanding him. You really do misunderstand him. He covers up. But it's with surprise and relief. So the few people that picked up on that thought that was the coach tipping his hat that his athlete didn't win. Well, the athlete said the same thing, and there was nothing wrong with it. And what are you going to do now? I mean, what are we going to do now? We wanted to see Tom and Ciryl. There was a time that Tom himself held Ciryl to a higher ranking. There's now a time where they've switched, and Ciryl's got to look at Tom and say, can I get an opportunity at that belt? I mean, there's a thing here. Can we unfry that egg? And it was a very interesting match in terms of the grappling, and it does make me think back, right? I mean, Volkov thought he won. I thought Volkov won. Everybody I watched the fight with, and I'm going to name drop a little here. I was with Ian Parker, and I was with Charlie, and Glenn's popping in, and Dominic Cruz is sitting there. These are guys that know what they're looking at. And it wasn't a back and forth or a him and a ha or a hedge of a bet. Volkov won. We did debate, did he win 2 rounds to 1, or did he win 3 rounds to none? And I do not agree with that. I think that Ciryl did win his round. So I'm sharing with it. Was it round number 2? And I'm only sharing with you that where you go from here and how we get there is going to take a little finesse. And I don't know that I love the idea of Ciryl giving to me what I've wanted since I was a teenager. From the Evander Lennox scenario, he gave what I wanted, which is to say, good job to that guy. Thought it was a cool thing. And I don't really want him to lose too much steam. Ciryl versus Tom works. Ciryl to go on a little PR tour and talk about the things that he was dealing with going into this fight to explain some of that performance are actually true. It actually works. I knew from being behind this end, I knew full well that Ciryl's foot did not feel well. I just wouldn't make believe that that Volkov felt well or felt great. It's one of those things. Everybody's kind of dealing with something. It levels it out. You go out there, do the fight, but you live with the result. And is it going to be enough, though? Right? Because for that play, from a leverage standpoint to work, there has to be you guys. The ultimate would be if you had a fight equal. Hey, it doesn't matter. And you can tell, you can see, it's talking to Jones. You can tell and you can see, it doesn't matter. We can go in this direction. And there is something special about Ciryl versus Tom. It's just those guys are not doing a good enough job of telling that story. So, sometimes you make those plays and you live with the result. And you look back to Jon. And you acknowledge, here's what we want to do. Here's what we tried to do. Favored you. And sometimes that's just what you do. There's a game being played. There's no hard feelings about it. I've seen a few times, though, where fighters did not know. Randy Couture beat Pedro Hizo and was surprised with the result. I had my own fight with Bisping where I was relieved with the relieved is only one little away from being surprised. But I have to call it relieved. There was a fight. It was Josh Neer. Boy, was it against Nate Diaz? I don't know about that. It was Josh Neer, though. Spencer Fisher? I know who it was. I can even see it in my head. Josh Neer fought. It was a free TV card. It was on like a Wednesday night. And Josh won the fight? Is that what it was? But didn't think he won? Josh disagreed with the decision, and I actually spoke to one of those judges. It was split decision. I spoke to one of the judges that gave it to Neer. No, I've got it. I was close. I've got it now. Josh, either he won or he lost the fight, but it wasn't due to a split decision. Two judges saw it very clearly, 30-27. Another judge saw it the entirely other way. And I spoke to that judge and said, hey, it's not a debate. When the guy that you gave it to says he didn't win, we're not in a debate. He didn't win. And I remember what the judge said. The judge stood on his decision and said, the guy in the fight does not have as clear of a vantage point as I have from the outside. It's hard to get somebody to come off with something once they're there. It's hard. Ciryl handled it. He handled it like a gentleman. But what is it the right way to handle it? I don't know that he added enough steam to the concept of him and Tom. And one thing that Ciryl for sure did miss was to connect the dot of him and Tom in the first place. Right? Ciryl should have made this crystal clear what this is about. I've already fought you for your title. I'll live with it, but I haven't fought you for that title, and that's the very title I used to have, and I want it back. He didn't do a good enough job of building that bridge. That would be my top critique.